On the comb knitting video, my bind off did not show to best advantage. I had trouble centering it on the screen. So I've made another attempt and given a little bit more detail. Here you go. Okay, let's give this another try. The first way I'm going to bind off starts at the yarn tail end. I'm going to lift stitch number 1 and I'm going to move it to needle number 2. Sometimes it loosens up a little bit, as you just saw, so I'll tighten it back. Then I'll wrap the needle, lift both existing stitches over the new wrap, forming a brand new stitch. And I'm going to repeat this. Stitch to the next needle, wrap, lift 2 stitches over the new wrap, and move over. Wrap. Now if you find it difficult to lift both stitches at once, it doesn't matter if you lift them one at a time, as long as they all are lifted in this step. You have a certain amount of control over how tight this bind off is, because you will be adjusting the looseness of your loop. See, this loop can grow if I need it to. Nobody would need it that large. But it can shrink also. I can tighten it around the needle before I wrap the next time. So if you're doing an area that needs a little bit of stretch, you can build some stretch into it. If you're doing an area that really requires stability, you can arrange for that too. It's quite flexible. In almost every case, you do want it to be even. Lift over, wrap, and knit over. Just a couple to go. And here on our last one, I would normally snip my yarn about here, but in this case I'm not going to, because I'm going to undo what I did and bind off another way. But if I had snipped, I would simply pull the tail through this last stitch. Now you see the nice little chain that forms along the edge and how stretchy it is. Now you get to watch me try to undo this. It pulls out very easily because it is a chain stitch. Undoing it's no problem. It's keeping the stitches intact so that I can rehang them on the comb. I want to keep the yarn tail at the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. The trick is that you don't want to pull hard on any stitch, because that will unravel the stitch next to it. And you don't want to twist them, although if you get one untwisted, you can always undo it later. Okay, I believe I'm rehung. Whoops, that one came off. Back you go. Now, this is the yarn tail. So in this case, I'm going to start from the opposing end. I'm going to transfer stitch 2 to needle 1 and knit stitch 1 over stitch 2 and then move it to needle 2. Transfer backwards, knit over, transfer, whoops, lost it, forwards. Transfer backwards, knit over, transfer forwards. You may wonder why in the world I don't just transfer forwards and knit one loop over the other like that. And while it would seem logical, what happens is that you never change loops. Here, I'm going to show you what happens if we do that. What if I took this stitch and moved it over? That seems fine. Now this stitch and moved it over. And this stitch, notice anything? This is the same stitch over and over. and it's starting to gather up here. There could be an occasion where that could be a good thing, that you need the gathering. But for most of the time, we need each stitch to go through the next one, not several to go through one. I will attempt to undo what I did and do it properly. You have to hold your tongue just right. Tease it on out. Okay, I believe if you look you can see. No, I might need to do one more. Might need to. When I looked, I saw that I wasn't done yet. Okay. This stitch is twisted. There we go. These are properly bound off. The remaining ones need to be bound off. So I'm going to resume doing what I know works. Transfer backwards, knit over, transfer forwards. Transfer backwards, knit over, transfer forwards. Transfer backwards, knit over, transfer forwards. 2 more to go, and the final one I would normally cut the yarn tail and pull it through the last stitch, but because I may want to fool with this a little bit more, I won't. However, you can easily see what would happen if it was cut. It would pull on through. Now take note, this also makes a chain stitched edge. Looks very nice. But do you see that it pulls in a little bit more? How much it pulls in is somewhat dependent on how tight your last row of stitches was, because that's how much yarn you have to work with. However, if you remember the first version of the bind-off, it left the edge of the fabric about as loose as the cast-on does. This is an E-wrap cast-on, so it does not match, but the amount of stretch is somewhat similar, whereas this one's pulling in, and if I fold them, you can see the difference. Okay, there you go. Now you know 2 ways to bind off your comb knitting, and I hope you could see it really well this time. Happy knitting. Bye now.